Ah, we're going backwards. But this is a good slide because it shows us the overall picture of the Middle East with Turkey, the Bosphorus right here, the Suez, and these other oil choke points in relation to Iraq right there, where we just sacrificed almost 5,000 young people, and God only knows how many Iraqis. And Iran. This is interesting when you look at the map. You can see why Iran might be a little bit nervous. You've got Americans here, and here, and Israelis over here in an American satellite country right here. So Ahmadinejad, I always like to listen to him because sometimes he sounds like a reasonable man when you listen to him. I've read the letters that he wrote to the president. I find that fascinating. He wrote a letter to George Bush asking him about what it meant to be a Christian. You can get all that on the internet. And he said, Mr. President, and he listed off several things that he felt like Bush had done. And he said, is this what it means to be a Christian? It sounded very reasonable, but then when he goes to the United Nations a couple of months ago to the annual Security Council meeting, he said that that the General Assembly, I said Security Council, but it was actually the General Assembly meeting. The General Assembly should be empowered, he said. And essentially, he calls for the Security Council to be done away with, and the General Assembly to be empowered equally across the board, all nations, no veto, and all these, quote, rich countries, these developed countries, would get what they deserved then. But so I wrote an article about that too, and I said that I had a different answer for what should be done with the General Assembly. That basically the president should tell them, you got 90 days to get out of town. You're welcome back as a tourist anytime. Because the United Nations, I'm running out of time. There's still so much world to go. Go ahead, John. I was going to tell you a story about the United Nations, but I don't have time. This is Indonesia. This is where the president just came from. And, well, he was, the New York Times said the president goes back to the land that calls him Barry. That was the front page of the New York Times. He was there doing whatever he did there. But now he's in Korea, in Seoul. But look, the president and the Secretary of State were in the Far East discussing how they could bring all these countries together into kind of a Far Eastern NATO, if you will. Asian countries, Asian, ASEAN, that means Association of Southeast Asian Nations. There are 10 of them: Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and many others. But this country right here, Vietnam, is near and dear to me. It's now a united country, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. And we fought these people off and on for 25 years. And we killed who knows how many of them, maybe millions. And they killed some 60,000 of us and wounded tens of thousands of others, many of them psychologically, that were never recovered. And right now, we're conducting, this minute as we speak, a joint military exercise with Vietnam consisting of the U.S. supercarrier, the George Washington, and its fleet of support ships, nuclear submarines and so forth, and units of the Vietnamese military. What goes around comes around. I guess it's okay. I'm not saying we should be enemies for life. I'm just saying, what's it all mean in the totality of things, They're the same people that they were then. I still say that it's a revolutionary force across the world But at the same time, the Russians, our old Cold War enemy, just signed a deal. Medvedev went to Vietnam personally, and did this in Hanoi to build 2 nuclear plants for them to be online and open and operating by the year 2020, because Hanoi has a real problem with power. Their power's off a lot during the day. They don't have very good sources. Maybe that's because we bombed them like Curtis LeMay said back to the Stone Age, I don't know. But we never bombed those dikes and flooded their cities. So that's probably not it. But still, Vietnam, who we were once at war with, can have nuclear plants, but Iran can't. Now, the Russians are also building nuclear plants in Venezuela. Say that's okay. They're transporting their nuclear technology, which they got from us because the best nuclear scientists in the world are American. We build nuclear plants all over the world, France and Russia and many other places. Joan, what's next? This is Japan. You can't see it very well, unfortunately. This is where the president is right now, unless he's already on Air Force One and the other 40 aircraft that transported his party. Some of you may have passed through this country once or twice. I have. But the Secretary of State was there too. We're conducting military exercises with all these Southeast Asian countries right now, including South Korea, like with ground forces and naval forces. I suppose we're trying to send them a message. We're still here. We're still #1 in the world. You can still rely on us, even though we're technically bankrupt. The Japanese, if you go back and you look at the history that has been released since the 60-year ban on World War II history, you find some really interesting things. And you can find, if you look carefully, that much of the decisions that were made at the end of World War II toward Japan were made as a result of United Nations efforts to form and to write its charter and so forth. Go and find the book Shadows of Hiroshima and read that. It's by a Japanese lady named Kai, K-A-I, Bird, spelled B-I-R-D. It's just a short little book that's been made into a film in Japan now. It's the first time that the Japanese have started to say, maybe we got a raw deal out of all this. But look at that. I'm told that I don't have time to pursue it any further. But the Japanese are interested in having this out of their bases in Okinawa. See, the American occupation of Japan ended in 1952, but it really didn't. We're still there. And so they're starting to say, it's time for you to go. Okay, this is our hemisphere.